those things can't be done, we can't do something significant like that, then we won't have a chance to
Right.
compete on that level. And then not only will I have a decision to make, but I think the organization will too, because at that point it's like,
Right.
are you going to go young or are we going to get something done? I think we just kind of been on to it, fully committed.
Another day, another trade rumor. Obviously, this time it involves a couple of teams, obviously, who aren't in the playoffs anymore. And that is mainly centered around the Trailblazers and that number 3 pick. This particular trade has been projected by The Athletic, or proposed by The Athletic, and it includes, I'll give you the details of the trade. It includes the 3rd pick in the draft of this year, presumed to be Scoot Henderson, a protected 2026 first round pick from Portland, Nasir Little, Luke Kennard, and Tyus Jones to the Raptors. The Grizzlies get Anthony Simons, it's a 3-team trade, and Pascal Siakam and the 13th pick in the 2023 NBA draft go to the Blazers. So basically, in aggregate, the Blazers would trade Anthony Simons, Nasir Little, pick number 3 in a future protected first rounder for Pascal Siakam and pick number 13. Would that be enough for GMs to bite? And I guess the question posed would be, who says no in this trade? And also, who's winning this trade and who are the losers in this particular situation, Marcus?
Okay, so in this trade, I might sound crazy to many, but personally, I'm looking at it from the Grizzlies side. So the Grizzlies would give up Luke Kennard and Tyus Jones, and they would get back Anthony Simons. And this might be a bold move, but to me, I think that's a win for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think Simons can be a perennial all-star in this league. I really rate him. I think he has some of the toughest shot-making ability in the league, and one of the only players I think who I look at, I'm like, he could go off for 40 for like 4 consecutive games. He's that good, and I still think he has a lot of upside. I think he's only 22 years of age, so there's plenty he needs to work on, and sometimes he doesn't take the best shots, but at the same time, there's not many players out there like Simons who are just a straight microwave. And I think if you're kind of begging on almost the downfall, not begging, sorry, obviously you're not begging, but if there is a bit of a downfall with Ja Morant and he's kind of acting up a bit and he's not really getting his things together, you got to back up in Simons, who I think he could potentially be maybe not a franchise cornerstone, but a secondary star and 100% a future NBA All-Star in my eyes. Okay, so then we look at the side from the Portland Trailblazers. They'll be getting back Pascal, like you said, and the 13th overall pick. And as good as Pascal Siakam is, I think he had like an All-NBA year this year. I don't think he was All-NBA, but he played like an All-NBA player. I don't think he and Dame is the best match made in heaven. I think Dame needs another wing, and it's something he's been missing throughout his entire career. And as good as Pascal Siakam can be, I don't think he's the guy next to Dame, because he's not a great spot-up shooter. And there's a reason why they were targeting a guy like OG Anunoby to begin with from the Raptors, and not Pascal Siakam. So, hey, I think they've kind of put it out there that they're looking for an elite, in quotation marks, wing or a small forward. And to me, if I'm the Portland Trailblazers, I'm looking in the direction of the LA Clippers, and I'm looking at Kawhi Leonard, because he hasn't really been able to play in the past couple seasons, and I really do think that secretly, may be to unpopular belief, but I think that Kawhi Leonard's out there on the trade market, and I think the Blazers should 100% pursue him. Toronto Raptors, obviously, they will get the 3rd overall pick. That's a win. I mean, they could draft a guy like Brandon Miller, only adding to those versatile utility big-ass wings like Scotty and OG. That's a win for them, I think. He fits in with that team. Or they could go in the direction of Scoot Henderson, and hey, that could be even a better fit, considering that Fred VanVleet might not be the point guard of their future. He might be on his way out in free agency. So, yeah, I do think this trade is very viable. To me, the Grizzlies, I think they come out winners, which sounds crazy, even though they're giving up one of the best backup point guards in the league and a great shooter in Luke Kennard. I think Simons is that good. I think the Blazers actually lose in this situation. But with that being said, to my last point, they get the 13th overall pick back. And when I'm looking at this draft class, I think people are going to slip. And perhaps they could draft a guy like Grady Dick, who we've made a video about, or maybe a big wing like G.G. Jackson, something that they've kind of needed in the past couple seasons, and he could be the perfect player for them. Or even a guy like Keegan Murray, Keegan's brother, and Chris Murray. He could be available. Yeah, Chris Murray. If not that, I don't know how much Amoni Bates' stock has rise, but maybe you take the chance on a guy like Amoni Bates. But that's just my 2 cents. Keen to hear what you have to say, because I know it's going to be a bit different.
Nah, I do like your point about Simons. I wouldn't say that the Grizzlies come out the winners here. Yeah. I think the only thing about Anthony Simons that could go into the Grizzlies' advantage by taking him is obviously we don't know the future of Ja Morant for next season. Obviously, there's still question marks about how long he'll be suspended for, how long the punishment will be. So if they are to miss Ja Morant for a large portion of the season, having that guy like Anthony Simons who can come in and fill up and be a microwave and fill up the stat sheet and put buckets on the board and all that sort of stuff, I think it would be a good backup complementary insurance policy piece for Ja Morant. But not saying that he's just strictly that. Obviously we saw what Anthony Simons could do. He averaged in the high 20s at some point, the low 20s at some points of this year, averaging like across the 23 point per game mark to start the year off. And when you see the kind of talent level he is, he's still really young. And obviously, again, if it continues to be a problem with Ja Morant in terms of the way his off-court stuff is eventuating, then having a guy like Anthony Simons on your roster, being, like you said, probably at best the second option, and then they try and maybe find another first option player or a franchise cornerstone to obviously bring into the Grizzlies. I don't think they'll get rid of Ja, despite the fact that he's got all those off-court concerns. But again, having that 1-2 punch in Simons and Ja, then you complement that with Jaren Jackson Jr., the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, and obviously a couple of younger pieces they may bring in over the next couple of years, then you're looking at a dangerous side for sure. But I don't know whether the Grizzlies say yes to that, because again, they lose Tyus Jones, who we know what he can do from a backup point guard perspective, and like you said, he's probably the best backup point in the league. Luke Kennard, I think they wouldn't be too displeased with, or like too hesitant or reluctant to get rid of Luke Kennard or let him go, because he was obviously involved in that trade from the Clippers to the Grizzlies originally during the year or during this past season. So obviously we know what he can do. He had that game where he hit like 10 threes, and he's an important role player off the bench because he's got that ability to stretch the floor and really, help collapse the defense a bit. But in that sense, I don't think, like I said, that they'd be too reluctant just to let him go. So in that case, I think that one wouldn't be too much of a worry. Tyus Jones giving him up and only getting back Anthony Simons and not even getting maybe a pick out of it, that might be a concern. But obviously the two main teams that this centers around is obviously the Raptors and the Blazers. And I think the Raptors have come away with a great haul there, in my opinion. If they can get, like you said, Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, ideally Scoot, because again, Fred VanVleet, he's not getting any younger. And having a young guy like Scoot who you can hand the keys to alongside Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, having that, and even having that marketability, like a guy like Scoot Henderson, he can definitely sell tickets. He can put seats in arena. Sorry, he can put bums on seats, bring people into the arena, and attract people to the games. Because not that they need that, the Raptors obviously have a really good fan base, but just the excitement that Scoot Henderson brings, and obviously the hype that even he had in those two games when he played against Victor Wembanyama and got a lot of attention and fanfare. I think it would be a great move for the Raptors, and not only just from that side of it, but obviously he's a great hooper as well, and he's got that ability to change a franchise and be a franchise cornerstone. Then to add to that, you get a protected 2026 first round pick, and again with these guys coming in the next few years, Cooper Flagg, and the like, where they possibly could be around that mark, it's definitely something that you strongly should consider, taking that pick and utilizing it to try and build again for your future going forward. And then you just get an additional complementary piece in Nazir Little, which obviously we've started to see a little bit of growth from him. But I don't think the Blazers get enough back here, just with Siakam and the 13th pick, with how much, obviously, they did give up. They didn't give up much, but they gave up, obviously, the 2 picks and Nazir Little. And again, to get Siakam, even he's getting on in age. He's not getting any younger, especially as a forward. And, he's not like your superstar level player. And I think that's what Dame needs. I think he needs another superstar next to him, not just a star that's on the cut. Yeah, correct. But that 13th pick, that could come in handy. Obviously, you don't know, late in the lottery, there's always been some gems. There's been a lot of, and that 13th pick, you've had Kobe Bryant, you've had Devin Booker pick with that pick. Yeah. It's
Donovan
the number 13th pick. So, Donovan Mitchell as well. So, it's just one of those things where, the 13th pick might be a good luck charm for any team that has that selection in the draft. So if the Blazers do come away with it, maybe they pick an absolute gem with the 13th pick, and it fast tracks their growth and fast tracks them to a championship. But in my opinion, hypothetically, would it be more tantalizing if they actually offered OG Anunoby in the 13th pick instead of Pascal Siakam? Would that be more tantalizing?
Bro, to me, that's more attractive to the Portland Trailblazers than Pascal Siakam. I think Pascal's obviously the better player in this situation. You pick one to build around, you pick Pascal Siakam. But to pair up with Damian Lillard, I think you need a guy like OG who plays. Pascal does as well. He plays 2 sides of the ball, but it's just OG has the ability to go get a bucket, and he can spot up, shoot from 3, and that to me makes the difference, because Pascal's not spotting up from 3 off the catch like OG is. So I think fit base, you got to go with OG.
OG's got that Defensive Player of the Year potential. Obviously, he was in the running earlier on in the season. I think he can definitely change the whole identity of that Blazers defense. Just from obviously,
and plus he was rumored to go there, like the whole of this season as well. So there's clear interest there, but it's just whether it's attainable. I mean, if they gave up another first round pick, a future first rounder, or even a guy like Danilo Banton, or just someone who has a bit of upside and potential in that trade, like I think they would have to give up something else with OG to make it work, because Pascal has that all-star next to his name. And because we know there's going to be a trade, like there's a trade in the works, it's just what actually happens. And it's going to be really interesting to see, not just like if Portland bring together a superstar next to Dame, but I think there'll be a lot of trading up and trading down picks to get multiple first round selections, and it's going to be interesting to see what teams do that. And I got a feeling Charlotte might potentially do that. But yeah, I think we wrapped that up pretty well. We spoke about how, the trade impacts all these 3 teams. And honestly, this trade is really realistic to me. Like, this is one of the best mock trades I've seen in a while, for sure.
It's not like, what is it, the trade generator, what do they call it, the trade machine or whatever, that you just come up with the most
the trade machine.
You just come up with the most outlandish trade scenarios, and they all get accepted, and it's like no team would ever accept half of those trades. But this one, actually, you could see some teams realistically, looking looking at their future, looking at the outlook of how this would affect their team going forward. And I think it's definitely more than realistic, and that's why the Athletic is a respectable source and a media outlet, because they obviously do put out really good takes like this one here. So like I said, guys, let us know your thoughts, and if you have any other ideas or any other content you want us to cover related to the draft, any other prospects you'd like us to deep dive into, or do a discussion video like this, let us know. But for now, that's all we have time for. This has been your boy Danko.
It's been Marks from the Bench Mob.
We'll see you in the next video. Peace out.
We are, baby.